G'day everyone. I haven't done a YouTube video in a while, and for that I apologise, but it is good to be back. Today my wife is at work and I don't have any sporting commitments, so I thought it would be a good idea to spend the best part of the afternoon in the best room of the house. Today I wanted to speak to you about the 10 most valuable items in my G.I. Joe collection. Now these items are valuable not necessarily because they're expensive, but because they have sentimental value to me. So without any further ado, in no particular order, here are the 10 most valuable pieces in my G.I. Joe collection. Okay, first up we have Lift Ticket. And what makes my Lift Ticket so valuable to me is the fact that he has the microphone. Now, as you know, Lift Ticket is a pretty inexpensive figure when he doesn't have the microphone, but as soon as you add that little piece of plastic, he becomes very, very valuable. I'm pretty proud to have him in my collection, and there's a funny story about how I picked him up. One night, I got up to relieve myself, and whilst I was doing so, I scrolled through my phone and found this guy on sale for cheap in one of the Facebook collectors groups. I snaffled him up, and the rest is history. I was in the right place at the right time, and I'm very proud to have a Lift Ticket with a microphone in my collection. So that's Lift Ticket, one of the most valuable pieces in my collection. Next up, we have a Locust helicopter. Now you might be wondering, why is such a strange looking helicopter holding so much value to me in my collection? Well, the answer is personal. When I was a kid, the G.I. Joe Locust helicopter was the only vehicle I had, and it went everywhere with me. I used to take it out into the backyard with my Joes, used to sit on my shelf in front of me while I was doing my homework. It was my favourite G.I. Joe toy by far. So when I started collecting a few years ago, a Locust was one of the first items I needed to pick up. And it's quite unusual for me because I don't actually collect a lot of vehicles, but this one certainly holds a dear place in my heart and is one of the most valued pieces in my collection. It's the Locust helicopter. Next up on my list of most valuable items in my collection is this guy. It is The Ultimate Guide to G.I. Joe by Mark Bellomo. Now the story with this is that when I first started collecting, I was cognizant of the fact that it would be very expensive and very difficult to collect every figure and every vehicle in the original 1982 to 1994 run of G.I. Joe. So I thought the next best thing would be buy a book that documents them all, so at least I can read about it. And this book does a phenomenal job of just that. As you can see, it documents all the figures and all the vehicles year by year throughout that original run of G.I. Joe, and is an absolute Bible for any G.I. Joe collector. The thing is though, when I bought it, the book was still in print, so I got it for a really reasonable price. And since then, the prices of these books, secondhand, have just skyrocketed. So I keep this close, and I know where it is at all times, because it is one of the most cherished pieces in my collection. That's The Ultimate Guide to G.I. Joe by Mark Bellomo. Next up, we have Tiger Force Outback. Now, for those of you who might be watching this video from America, Tiger Force Outback was actually pretty common in Australia and Britain during the 80s and 90s. I picked up my Tiger Force Outback from Facebook Marketplace a couple of years ago. A lady was selling her ex-husband's G.I. Joes. Crazy story, I know. But this guy, he was in a bag of 8 or 9 figures for a really cheap price. I couldn't believe my luck, but I have him in my collection to this day. He did have a broken leg though, which I've since fixed up. And he doesn't have his original backpack, harness or rifle, but he's still a pretty good specimen, and I'm really proud to have him in my collection. So that's Tiger Force Outback. I'll put him over here, I reckon. Next up on my list is not one, but 2 figures. I couldn't split them, they're a package deal. And that's because someone gave them to me at the same time. And they are Snake Eyes and Scarlet from 1982. The story with these is that a longtime work colleague of mine was going on a trip of a lifetime to America, and before he left he said, "Give me a list of the figures you want me to look for and I'll see what I can do." So I put the rare figures on my list, not expecting him to find any of them. But lo and behold, a month later he came back from America and presented me with these crisp versions of Scarlet and Snake Eyes. So these are really valuable to me for two reasons. First, they're really iconic figures from that 1982 year, but also they were gifted to me by a dear friend who went out of his way to find them for me. So that's Scarlet and Snake Eyes, two of the most valuable items in my collection. Next up, we have quite a funny piece. Are you ready? Here we go. It is classified Prophet Director Destro mounted on a trophy block. Now the story with this is that my cricket club wanted to show some appreciation to me for the efforts that I put in during the season in 2023. So they found this Prophet Director Destro, who seems to be going cheap at every toy shop in Australia at the moment, mounted him on a trophy block, and inscribed the trophy with Most Valuable Coach, which is clearly a spelling error on the part of the trophy manufacturer. That actually makes the whole thing a little bit more funny, and it is certainly a centerpiece of my collection to this day. The fact that the cricket club went out of their way to come up with a gift that would make me smile every time I looked at it is just fantastic. And for that reason, it's one of the most valuable or valuable items in my collection. Another item in my collection that is very valuable to me is this. It is issue 21 of the original A Real American Hero comic book line. This issue is known as the Silent Issue. It doesn't contain any dialogue, which was cutting edge for comics at the time. It certainly made a name for the author, Larry Hama, and all good G.I. Joe fans know this issue like the back of their hand. It's iconic and I'm proud to have it. It's issue 21 of G.I. Joe Real American Hero. Next on my list is this guy. It's a complete Zartan. I never had a Zartan and I never thought I would get one. But my good friend Adam Howes, that's the Shark-Eyed Toy View, go and check him out if you haven't already. He spotted this guy in a shop for me in Victoria and grabbed him for me. A week later it rocked up in the post and I couldn't be happier. He still changed his colour, he's still got all of the accessories, he's still nice and tight, and I'm really rapt to have him in my collection. That's Zartan. Last item on my list is the figure that started it all. The most valuable figure in my collection is this guy. It's Dial Tone. And he's valuable to me because he was the first figure I had when I was a kid, and he was the first figure I picked up when I started collecting again as an adult. He brings back so many memories for me, and he is certainly one of my favourites. That's Dial Tone from 1986. So they're the 10 most valuable pieces in my collection. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to like and subscribe if that's your thing. I'll see you next time. Yo Joe.